Hey everyone, Chennington here, excited to share with you the top 10 most expensive Vaporwave cassettes ever sold. Before we start, I want to set a couple of ground rules here for the countdown to keep this thing nice and tidy. First, since this video is in regards to the most expensive cassettes ever sold, I'm going to be listing each album's monetary value in the list from the highest price ever sold of said album. Going to be pulling my prices mostly off of Discogs, so I will not be using the median price they provide on there, so be aware that these albums might not always sell at this high of a price. Next, box sets like Dream Catalogs, Dream Boxes, or Business Casuals, Biz Boxes will not be contenders for the list, as they usually contain 3 or more cassettes, which obviously drives up the price point if there's multiple rare albums in there. And lastly, if anyone has heard or seen any more prices that exceed this list, feel free to let me know in the comments, as I'm always curious about how high the prices of some of these cassettes can go for. Alrighty, so let's dive right into it. Here we go. At number 10, we have PrismCorp Virtual Enterprise Home, coming in at a shiny $170. PrismCorp Virtual Enterprise is one of the many aliases to the mothership known as Vectroid, and this release coming out in mid-2013 eventually became just another highly sought pressing from Beer on the Rug, a label that has put out some legendary releases over the years that become harder and harder to get or find on cassette. There's no surprise people still seek this album, as its elegant and comforting sound will warp your living space into a virtual home building tour, like in The Sims when you press start and begin moving furniture, walls, and more with a click of a mouse. It's a good way of sensationalizing chores and cleaning. Its early 2000s, we're about to enter a golden age in computer technology feeling will make you feel like 1999 is about to end all over again, and I think any Vaporwave fanatic would love that added to their collection. At number 9, we have Telepath's Another Night Together, coming in at $171.37, to be exact. This was released on a green glitter shell cassette that really complements the color palette of the artwork, and furthermore was limited to only 100 copies. It's a foggy, elegant experience many of us have come to love from Telepath, and is definitely a great piece to own in anyone's collection. I'd even display the physical cassette itself outside of the case for that matter. It's a real beaut. At number 8, we have another piece from Telepath, this time with Golden Living Room with their album Virtual Fantasy 2097. This album on cassette has fetched for up to $176.49, a nice little price tag placed on this pretty transparent blue cassette tape pressed originally by Dream Catalog. The washy and smudged artwork on the inner card really gets it to pop from that Sega Saturn binding that presents itself pretty well when stacked in a collection. You're going to find on this list that a lot of Telepath's earlier stuff in his discography is pretty sought for and can only be achieved by paying a pretty penny. The price tag walks the walk though, as this album is just another classic Vaporwave performance from each of these artists, as well as a solid pressing from Dream Catalog. At number 7, what do you know, it's Telepath again with Beyond Reality, hitting the $200 mark. Released back in late 2014, this 50 edition only run on transparent blue gave its buyers a download code that led to a secret hidden album only available for those who purchased the album. Love the way this cassette looks. Its dark and black filled artwork complements this lady who seems to be in an elevator on her way to a meticulous cubicle-esque job interview, only to be told she doesn't have the credentials they quite need at the moment. At number 6, let's take a look at Echo Virtual Atmospheres 1 that hits with a $240 price tag. Released on the prestigious Hologram Bay, this album is the ideal Vaporwave starter pack for anyone, as it's way more on the condensed side of things with its chill, dreamy sounds and relatively simple trap beats. Couldn't actually find too much info on the pressing amount. Seems to be a pretty unknown cassette in regards to specific characteristics we know about it, which makes this thing that much more interesting. So we're halfway there at number 5, and let's take a look at LASERDISC Visions New Dreams, pressed by Beer on the Rug, coming in at $270. Another fan favorite, this highly sought after cassette pressed on dark blue is a relic of the genre, as it came out all the way back in 2011, once again by Vectroid. What's really interesting about this album, when it first came out all the way back in 2011, it was sold on Discogs for just $8.82. Just going to show how large the community has gotten and how many people seek to add these presses into their collection. At At number 4, we're going back to Telepath once again, this time with Amaterasu, I think that's what it translates to, coming in at 300 Benjamins. This is the most expensive cassette to come out of Telepath's library and was pressed onto a see-through gray cassette laid over with a smoky purple label. Its atmospheric, enchanting, and emotional sound aesthetic is a great one to play late at night for all those hopeless romantics out there in need of a sweet, syrupy group of tracks. Only 75 were ever produced, making this another low-run gem. Number 3. Alright everyone, we're up to the top 3, and as many of you guys are about to realize and probably can expect, they're filled with some of the biggest juggernauts we have in the Vaporwave catalog. First, we have the beloved banger Hit Vibes by SAINT PEPSI coming in at $349. Not only is this album sought after on cassette, but it's also highly seeked on vinyl, where it fetches similar prices to this amount. Anyone would love to own a part of Vaporwave and future funk history, as this album was pretty much some of the first major training wheels and baby steps into the future funk sound from the earlier days of Vaporwave. Pressed on Sunup recordings, this album was laid onto a see-through clear cassette with a pretty simple label and album artwork replicating and simplifying the original album art. So as Sunup's Bandcamp says themselves, purchase this cassette and you'll be taking a trip back to Studio 54, ready to dance the night away. At number 2, we have the impeccable example of Vaporwave sampling with Eccojams Volume 1 by Chuck Person. This baby has been purchased for $530, being the first cassette on the list to cross the $500,000 mark. An unforgettable piece in Vaporwave's timeline, this is just another holy grail of the community that any collector would obviously love to get their hands on. The inner card of the cassette stretches the artwork around the entire casing, only to hold that beautiful simple cassette on the inside like a shiny pearl deep under the ocean. Limited to 100 copies, it is only obvious a mega hit album like this reaches up for such a high price point. Recently, as many of you know, an unofficial bootleg edition of the album was pressed by Vaportape Inc., causing quite a stir in the Vaporwave community as some people couldn't decide whether they liked the idea of it or hated it, due to the fact that Vaportape Inc. did not get permission nor approval from Chuck himself to go through with the pressing. I actually ended up buying one of these the day it was announced. Chuck Person never said anything about it yet, and Vaportapes made it seem like it wasn't too bad of a purchase and seemed pretty, cool. I mean, it's Eccojams. And whether you hate me for it or not, when they first posted it and when everyone was running into this chaotic frenzy of whether or not to buy it, I was intrigued at the idea of it all and curious to hear how it would sound as a bootleg, so I went through with buying it. And I'm possibly going to make a video on the tape in the future and also a discussion about bootleg pressings overall in the Vaporwave world. I think that would be an interesting video. And lastly, as many of you can see coming, the number 1 spot goes to Floral Shop by MACINTOSH Plus, which has been bought for up to $860 on cassette. You heard that, $860, almost $1,000 for a cassette. A little over the top, possibly, but then again, owning this is really the farthest one can go in achieving and preserving a piece of physical Vaporwave history. Pressed by Beer on the Rug, the original pressing of this cassette, and I say original as there have been many bootleg copies sold as well, sometimes fooling buyers unfortunately, was ran at an edition of 100 and contains a download card for extra bonus tracks not initially featured on the original album. The idea of buying a cassette at such a high price, despite the digital version being only a couple of dollars, just goes to show how far some people really are willing to go to be able to hold physical, tangible evidence. I mean, in regards to this album, this is really the cream of the crop and the boss level, if I may say, of Vaporwave collecting. So for those who have the guts to hit that price tag, I really do bow down to the level of severity you take your collection at. Humanity is a very interesting species, so who knows what prices we'd all be willing to pay for in the future with Vaporwave's seemingly ever-growing musical library. Everyone, thank you again for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and found it a little interesting, and if you can, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with me as I release new content. Much love, your boy, Pat Chennington.